Roles of a denizen. A content creator is a user that creates posts and is rewarded based on the quality of their content. A content evaluator is a user that helps assess the quality of content and enforces community standards. The evaluator is effectively taking part in a marketplace to curate content and is rewarded for early evaluation. A content consumer is a user that wishes to find and consume the most valuable content in a given subject area or within a community. A lair owner is a person holding tokenized ownership of all or part of a community lair. Owners are rewarded with a portion of all mining activity happening within their lair. Owners are incentivized to build the best community of content creators and evaluators.
Hello, denizens. Welcome to the DENDAO call for June 1st, 2023. It is 3 p.m. Eastern, which is the time of day on Thursday that we do this every week. Quick reminder, nothing here is financial advice. We are simply here to discuss how to manage a piece of software as a DAO. So anybody can join this. This is an open DENDAO call, and you can find a link to join the call over on Den.Social in the DENDAO layer. When you pull up Den and you go to the layers section, you'll find a post called DENDAO Call 2023 June 1st. When you pull it up, it'll look like this. And at the top, right under where it says agenda, there is a link to join. And if you click that, you'll pop into the lobby, send us a little private chat message, let us know that you're here ready to go, and we'll bring you up and chat. You don't have to show your face or identify yourself or whatever. You can leave your camera off if you want. We're just here to discuss, and all denizens and all humans are welcome. If you're a really good AI bot and you can pass as human, you're welcome too. So bring it on. All right, so June 1st, here we are. Pretty good agenda for discussion. We've been talking about Den for a while already today. Today's World Blockchain Roundtable was all about Den.Social. So if you missed that, go check it out. There were some really good questions, some really good discussion on it, and maybe we can recap some of that here today, because that's on the agenda too, to recap anything we wanted to hit on for governance call. Let me just read through the agenda real quick, and then we will go back to the top and actually talk about it. So we'll talk about the June LCP that's starting next Tuesday. We will discuss open sourcing Den, or at least documenting an API so that people can start developing Den applications on their own. We'll recap a little bit, like I said, World Blockchain episode today. And then, of course, there's always community input and feedback. You can just chime in and chat, or you can leave a reply to this post. I'll refresh at the end to see if anything pops up. All right, so first of all, how's everybody doing? Thanks for joining us.
We've got great.
Joe, we've got John, we've got Greg, and we've got Lisa. So thank you all for taking the time to come to the meeting today. Every month we have an LCP. This is the free way to create a layer, and if you get enough support from the community, it gets created. So every month we have a couple of phases. One is to propose a new layer that's done in the LCP layer. You can find instructions in there. And then after there's some proposals put in, there's the voting period. And if you want to have a look at what you might be voting on, even when the voting round is not turned on, you can always go to the LCP section here and bring up a list of layers that have been proposed in the past that have not won yet. And there's like 100 and something. I don't know, there's a bunch. So there's plenty of stuff. Last time we had Australia and real estate. Quick note, if you are Australian, or if you live in Australia, or if you're an Australiaologist, or if you just like really want some Australia lot, hit me up, because I pushed that one up just to get 2 winners, since the first one in each category was the same layer. so that we can get 2 layers winning instead of just one. Plus, I like Australia. I know some Australians. They're cool. They have great accents. I love hearing them talk.
Australophilia is a valid thing.
I actually have some too that I'll give away, and I generally don't like Australians. I've met a few that I like, but mostly not. I'm just joking. No, but yeah, I would definitely give up some good Australian lot to the right person. It would be pretty awesome.
I would say I should give it up. I've got 69%.
Really, 69%.
Goodness.
Awesome.
I had a bunch of extra lore, and I was like, you know what? I want more than real estate this month. Let's make it happen.
Wow, how many?
So,
I have.
You should give it to the person who does the best Paul Hogan impersonation on a
Okay,
recording.
Contest would be great, actually.
How about this? I'll give up. I have 5% of real estate. I would give up all of it if we find the right people, right? So,
what's the best way to do that? Because the issue always, right, is getting the right ownership who are going to do something with it.
mm-hmm.
And if you do something with it, it could be very valuable, especially if it took off in Australia as a, like, I know for a fact that Australia is very, there's a lot of interest in free speech, for example, and privacy and things like that. So if you could start, maybe you already have like a discussion group in Australia that's off of the normal social media channels because of those reasons. I'm just interested in attracting all of Australia in that one layer, you know. So if you could do something with it, I'll give you a substantial share of it. That'd be great. So
if you want to pay me to go to Australia and I'll knock doors, that's to try to get people to sign up. So
viable. John's got the time, so if you can finance that, he'll be there.
Yeah,
that would be pretty good. And I mean, I would say maybe if you were to take a certain percentage and just challenge people, you know, provide good content during this month, and you'll compete for this much, right? That's work.
Good.
But
can you do that? Can you do bounties with your
not automatically? Not automatically. You just have to say. And typically, the way I do it is like say, oh, I see a particularly good content, and I'll just tip them on the spot with certain. I just have to kind of mentally
created. Yeah.
You could always also
say how much. Yeah.
You can boost a post too, right? Like you'd say, I'm running this contest, and you could boost it.
Okay.
Yeah. Yep.
That sounds like the most straightforward way to do it. So you could either just start tipping out Australia-related content, and I'll tip more lot depending on how good I think it is. Since it's my lot, I can just decide.
Yep.
Or maybe if somebody has a fun idea for a good contest that they think would, because contests are fun, and there is a contest layer that we could cross-post into.
That'd be awesome.
Yeah.
I love it.
Yep. So I know at least one person who's interested, who said to let him know, somebody from the Divi community who's a solid Australian that I've known off and on for a while. Hopefully, this was before I left on vacation. Now that I'm back, I hope he's still interested and hasn't lost interest. So I'll hit him up, and then I don't know, maybe somebody reaches out to what's his name over there.
Just try to get Caitlin Johnstone to join it.
What is the guy's name? I forget now. Bitlord is in Australia as well.
Is he?
Yeah. So that would be interesting. That would be very interesting to get his community in here because he's a riot.
I think my favorite Australian. I think he locked himself out of his own Twitter account. I think he decided to drop out of Twitter.
Mm-hmm.
So I'm like, I don't think I
would like to give it to Julian Assange as an Australian. He would be a great person to give some Australia a lot to. He can do whatever he wants with it.
Pretty good. Yeah.
Given the opportunity.
If he could access it, that would be really awesome.
Yeah.
Cool. So
maybe still want some.
Think about that, and we'll execute. So we got Australia and real estate is who won. So the rest of these are up for vote still. I don't usually do this with the whole 69% thing. I just happen to have a lot of lore, and I have a lot of matter right now because I'm buying a camera with matter, and I haven't sent it yet, so I still have that. But I typically try to stay like under 5% if I can manage it, unless I'm really interested. So if you can see here, what I used to do is I throw in a little bit of lore on everything I'm slightly interested in, so that whatever wins, I get a little piece of it. Yeah, that kind of thing. Yeah. So if you don't see, more importantly, and to the point, if you don't see a layer in here, and you can expand the descriptions, and you can click on it to see the proposal, to see who proposed it, and all that stuff. If you do not see a layer that aligns with your layer idea, you can propose it, look at the LCP layer for instructions on that, or you can just buy it. They're for sale. So the ones that you pay for, you get to customize and decide who exactly the owners are, and you can do whatever you want, totally customizable. The free ones you have to get community support for, because we do give them away. We just got to make sure there's enough people that want to participate before that happens, right? So it'll be the number one by lore and the number one by unique voted. Lore being the way that you vote for it, and the unique voters being the number of unique voters. So any questions on LCP or further discussion there?
I don't think so. Nothing here.
What are the days or I always get messed up with the calendar on this. Like, it's like I show up after the voting time is closed or whatever.
Yeah, it's usually, is it the third week? The voting is on? How does it line up?
Is proposals. Second week is voting.
That's right.
Third week is to, give us time to create them and do all of what's needed processing. And then is that right? Is that it? There's a fourth weekend if there's a.
Yeah, it's something like that.
Yeah, it's something like that.
It's about like that. So usually, that's right. Yeah, the first week is usually when you propose. And then the second week. If you ever come into LCP and you see this countdown doesn't say 0, then voting is open.
Then voting is open.
Yeah, then you can vote. If there's any countdown at all, then you can vote. If it says 0, then voting is not open. Also, you can tell by clicking on something, and if you cannot commit, you can only withdraw, then it's not open.
Oh, see, I misunderstood the wording. Commit phase ends in 000. To me, that means the commitment phase has ended. You cannot vote.
That's correct.
Oh, that is correct.
Yeah, the commitment phase is ended from last month. It's ended. So when it opens up, it'll say commit phase ends in like 6 days, however many hours, minutes, seconds, kind of thing. And it'll be ticking down here. Okay. So yeah, you can just, if you're curious if it's open or not, usually the second week of the month is when it's open. But if you're curious, you can go to the LCP section and just see if that timer's counting down. If there's movement, it's active.
Okay, got it.
Shout out to I Am for I Am, who's listening in but unable to attend this month. Good luck with all of your endeavors, sir. I wish you the best of luck. Thanks for listening. And let us know if you have any questions while we talk about this stuff. Next on the agenda, open source discussion. This is what I'm really interested in talking about anyway. So we talked a little bit on World Blockchain and also during the AMA on Super Happy on Tuesday about open sourcing, how to proceed in that direction. And I've already said I'm kind of a fan of the first steps being documenting and publishing the API, since that's what we already use for the website to communicate with DEN. Anybody could make their own website that communicates with the same DEN blockchain. If we publish that API, the only caveat there is that there would need to be some sort of application process to access the auth system, to log on, to let people log on through your website as a denizen. Kind of thing.
You wouldn't be able to write with just using the naked API. You would only be able to get reads from an auth point of view.
Right. Yeah, you can do a read-only site if you want, if you're interested in that. But to allow people to log into your website or your app, if you want to build an app, it all uses the same API for the back end. So that's kind of my thoughts before we start open sourcing stuff. Maybe we go. I think that's the quickest way to start opening it up to let anyone develop on DEN. But Joe, what do you think about this topic? We're here talking about open sourcing DEN.
Oh, yeah, I definitely agree with that. The API is kind of a first step. I would like to get some of it open, at least some of it, so that people have a better, or so that people could potentially integrate much more native features rather than just views or add-ons, right? I mean, if theoretically, and we very well might require some level of credentialing that you'd have to come in and verify you're not a bad actor, but that you would be able to one way or another, fix a bug that is there, or even potentially propose a change to an algorithm, or with a pull request of code. So here's I want to propose this change, and here's the code to do it, right? And that would be a valuable thing usually, but there are a lot of open questions there. There's a bunch of little complexities, and some of it, if we want to really drive it, I mean, the first side is just opening it, and we theoretically, although these days it's hard to tell, theoretically you should get people wanting to come in and help contribute purely, right? It's like, this is a system, I want to build something, but if you can plug in some way that they can recognize that there might be either a manner to monetize on the outside. Maybe it's a premium feature and they want to charge for it, and we said, oh, that's not a bad idea. Or maybe it is something that is more bounty based, where the DENDAO the first process is delineating, here's some features that are doable with what's out there, and if anyone is interested, we want these built, and we can converse further. We could get on this call here and go through what are the details, are there any requirements that we haven't documented in what we put out, that type of thing. Then they could build them and essentially get founder's lot or get Matter, or whatever DENDAO decides. I mean, I'd like to get feedback on that structure, because I think in the end that's what's going to make it really well integrated with the DAO itself. So it's not just the dev team deciding stuff on their own, that it would legitimately go through the DENDAO, and we'd all have a way, number one, to facilitate it happening, and number two, to have the dev team's role be to evaluate the pull request and say, oh, this is great, but we can't do XYZ because of some security issue that they might not have been aware of, right?
Right. And as it's set up right now, we can already, assuming we have code on GitHub that's open, we could already use the DENDAO structure that we have to vote on pull request to decide if we want to pull that in. And I would imagine a pull request comes in, a discussion thread, or even a proposal immediately goes up. If it's probably a discussion thread first, but there would be room for discussion about code review and what is this doing and stuff like that.
There's also a huge opportunity here, I think, to take advantage of the issue logging capability to allow people to sort of crowdsource the improvements as well. Because I'm sure there's tons of people out there who have ideas and either don't have the capacity to write the code, or don't know how to use GitHub, or don't feel like using ChatGTP to write something, which I fully intend to do, by the way.
Sure. If it's good enough and it works, cool.
It should be pretty neat. But issue reporting will be like a big thing, I think, for people.
That would be cool too. For example, a lot of people who watch the blockchain and crypto space have their own ideas of what metrics matter for a project. And with Den not being open right now, one of those metrics that they look at is GitHub activity. And so ours isn't public, right? So they can't look at that and see GitHub activity as a metric of, some people use it as a metric of health for a project, which regardless of how you feel about that metric being used for whatever, to gauge, it is like a heartbeat metric that a lot of people use. So that would hopefully get, some attention from those types of people.
Right. It's a good metric because it rewards open source projects, I think, and it's certainly a thing in crypto space. So like getting us in there really does kind of make a lot of sense, just for that one reason alone. Because it'll put some people back on the radar,
and hopefully attract developers who want to help implement the feature that they're asking for. That's the key. Yeah. Then anybody could code for Den if they have the chops.
What are the downsides of doing the open source. I mean, are there patents in place where this is not going to be stolen by Wall Street, like what just happened with, oh gosh, what was that? There's just an announcement of something where the Wall Street guys are coming in.
I don't
I'll
know.
try to find it.
Yeah, I have been out for a week, so I don't know, but that could be a concern.
There may be some question about what particular open source license is best to use. Because that can be a pitfall for, not just the underlying code, but for the code that people will most likely want to write to build on. Because, for instance, there are some open source licenses that allow you to take the underlying code and then fork it private, right? And then there are others that you have to actually leave the code base open source,
right?
Even your fork, unless it's a wholly separate feature. And like they're just like different variations on it that allow you to have some insight into who's forking the code or not, and require credit or not, that sort of thing. So I think there's probably some thought that has to go into that.
Yeah, and Lisa, some of the things that might happen, for example, that have happened with other projects that are open, would be that anybody could fork the code, make a copy of it, and then, for example, if somebody said, "Oh, you know what, DEN's great, but I want to do a DEN with a new token of my own and a whole new thing, and we want to call it NED instead of DEN," or something like that, they could totally do that, And if they put in the work to build a community and made that successful, they could use our code and then modify it until it's their code and that kind of thing. I would imagine that would still be relatively beneficial to Den, because as it sits right now, for Den to work the way that it works, it needs Dragon Chain scalability and interoperability. So they would at least still be using Dragon Chain even if they did that, right?
And on top of that, they're probably going to be pulling every update and forking, re-updating their fork every time you make an update. So you kind of then control that one too.
And the other way around, honestly,
right?
If, like you said, if we license it correctly,
licensed correctly, it can be a sort of pretty much zero downside type of situation.
It's a two-way street. If they go develop something amazing for theirs, we can then look at it and say, "Oh, that's cool. Let's pull their code into Den and use what they built." And they can use our stuff and we can use their stuff, and we're all one big happy dysfunctional family.
Usually, I will say for licensing, just a quick rundown. It used to be GPL v2 for me, but v3 kind of broke that, and because it's a little bit too tight. So I tend to like Apache best, but a lot of groups like MIT. The MIT has some interesting, weird little flaws, and I would wonder though with this, because we might want to make it a little bit more. What's the word that Microsoft uses on that? Gosh. Anyway, we might want to make it to infuse it with a little bit of extra likelihood that it couldn't be, pulled off and for commercial, so
you wouldn't want somebody to fork it into a private code base, spend a fortune adapting it, and then go to direct competition against you. But but then again, the likelihood of somebody doing that may be so small that the flexibility that's afforded by the looser licenses might actually be a better trade-off for that risk. So it's always a trade-off, I think, with these licenses. The key, I think, the really big key is to make sure that whatever license you pick, you stick with it.
Yeah,
because
I think a really good discussion.
It's really hard to change them sometimes, especially if you release code that people have already forked.
I think a really good post on Den, a good discussion would be something that just summarizes the difference between GPL v2.3, MIT license, Apache license, BSD license. What do those do, and why are they different? And, why are they designed the way they are, and that kind of thing. I think if anybody wanted to take that on, I would throw a bunch of energy at it for doing that work for us to get that conversation going, because I think it's an interesting. I would be interested anyway, just in reviewing, reviewing that, and then also seeing what other people think.
Who knows this stuff inside and out is Austin. We really probably should bounce it off and see what he thinks.
We'll see if Austin wants a bunch of matter or energy applied to his post. and invite him to get some rewards if he wants to write it up.
I used to be the go-to guy at Lockheed, but I'm out of date. I don't know if anything's changed on some of them, right?
Some of the precedents that have happened probably since then have made it weirder.
Yep.
And this one's more for artwork and assets and stuff too, but there's also Creative Commons, which is a different thing, a different animal, but that exists as well.
Mm-hmm. Right, that would be like copyright versus
licensing. Yeah.
Yeah.
All right. So I think then that's one thing that needs to happen is a discussion on the different licenses. And then what were we going to say, Joe? I was going to say API.
I have to apologize. I have to jump out early. I've got 5 minutes before I open up.
Okay, no problem.
And I would say we'll probably need a vote on what licenses we end up running with.
Yeah, needed to be a discussion followed by a vote, probably.
Yeah.
So that would be since and correct me if I'm wrong, but it sounds like the API first and then open sourcing is the logical path to take. So we could be having the discussion about the license before we, as we are publishing, documenting the API, kind of the same time.
Yeah, and you can publish the API without having the code that runs it in the open source. So that would make more sense, I think, especially because it would give people the context for what things people might want to build off of it.
How much, Joe, while you're still here, how much of a lift do you think that is to document that API? At least, so step one, I would say, is to publish what people could use to get a read-only DIN going. And then step two would be create a process for allowing interaction with the auth system. What do you think that would look like timeline-wise?
I'll have to ask. I can't speak with authority on it, but I do think some of it might already be there because we obviously have the front end talking to the back end. So I know that they've traded, some level of doc back when that was built. I'll just have to ask, but I would imagine, especially given, it's a finite set of endpoints. So every one of them, worst case, will be able to just pull the log of what's being sent and
true. You could just look at it. You could just F12 and look at it, huh?
Yeah. So,
cool.
Yeah.
Well, we don't want people to have to do that, but I forgot about that. Yeah, it is just kind of there. Cool. Thanks.
Yeah.
So, that gives us something to build on and a direction to go. Thanks for that discussion. Yeah. I am asking, is there a test net for devs to work on? Yes and no. It isn't like you would see with other networks. It's basically what do you call it? Like the dev server, I guess, or the dev.
Yeah, we do. I mean, we do have a dev that has the full system on it. I don't know if it's
like a different copy of DIN, basically, that has fake layers in it, and there's like a Battlestar Galactica layer, and it's just like little just to mess around with to see if stuff works or not before it goes.
That's definitely there. So we, that's part of what you would probably include in the credentialing to, that they would then have access to that. Whatever.
What might be a good thing to do would be to put out an email sign up for people to be notified when news on this particular thing happens.
Mm-hmm.
To give people a link to go hey, I want to be notified when something goes open source, or I want to be notified when when the API is available, or when certain specific news related to it comes up. That might actually be really valuable because a lot of developers are going to want to see that and pretty much nothing else.
Yeah, you could probably. I'm sure we could design something that even a denizen could opt into and just say use whatever email address I signed up for Den with to notify me, kind of thing.
Yeah.
We could throw up just a Google form too, or something. I don't know.
So I am to answer your question. Joe or maybe myself is going to talk to the dev that knows the most about our existing API documentation, about how long that it would take to get that into a publicly publishable state, and then we'll know how long that'll take. And then as far as open sourcing, real quick before you leave, There's a little bit of more work probably that has to be done with that, because we have to decide, number one, and this is going to be further discussion, I'm sure, what parts of it get published first, what parts of it may potentially stay proprietary for now. That's a lot of the timeline on open sourcing is going to depend on what makes sense to open up first, and that kind of thing. So I don't know about that, but the API is a really good first start, because then you can just start building on it immediately. And then later, if that's not enough, you can always fork what's opened. So I don't know the answer to the question, but we know which questions to ask to find out, and we should have some sort of, honestly, by next week, we should have some sort of idea how long it would take to get the API out, at least. I would hope.
Yeah, that'd be good. Okay. All right. Thank you, guys. Sorry I have to leave early.
No worries, man.
Okay.
Talk soon. Bye.
All right. See you, Joe. So cool. The next part of this is more open-ended. We just had a really good episode of World Blockchain Roundtable about Den.Social. And there's a bunch of cool questions on there, a bunch of discussion about, some of it was kind of cerebral, which was fun. Some of it was more, what would you call it? Theoretical, I guess is the same thing. I don't know. But what were your takeaways? All of you were here for that discussion. Also, those in chat, what were your takeaways, and what do you think you want to hit on from a governance perspective? Like, what was interesting about that? And anybody can just kind of speak up if they have something in mind.
I thought it was so, like, I mean, I hosted the show, so I didn't really talk all that much. But I liked what like Lisa had to say about like things that are going to be able to like improve like content that's on Den, because this also kind of goes to talk about all the marketing and stuff. Like, I think Den is a great platform. It's super versatile. It's a inviting community. But like, I need to be able to do certain things, right? So I think like adding those kind of functionalities are really cool, and that's what makes it like also a cool thing to market. Like marketing the fact that you can get on GitHub and do this, like it's going to hit people, but it's going to hit a much smaller number of people that are more interested in being able to see their favorite streamer, or being able to interact with a comment on a video in real time. Because I think that'd be cool if like somebody uploaded a video and then we're able to like comment on the video at certain time marks. So to have discussions at certain points in the video, I think that'd be really neat. I think that sounds like a more exciting selling point for your average computer user compared to some of the stuff that seems that's too technical even for myself, even though I don't consider myself an amazing person. But
I definitely agree with that, and it's a valuable point to be made, because there's a lot of changes that were made that sort of reduced what I would call quality of life, just usage. And then Lisa, on the after show, I was giving you a little demo of how to of the workaround to get a video to post properly. You know what I mean? And it's stuff like that I would say is a quality of life issue, where if you're working with Den, especially if you're working with it every day as a creator, there's like the more of these, like, oh, you got to know this little trick or this little workaround or this little caveat, this little hack, before you can actually get your workflow to work. That's an issue, and that's a barrier for adoption for sure. So I would say that that today's show highlighted that for sure. That discussion highlighted.
I think you brought up a great point of that, Greg. Sorry, I'm looking at Greg's thing, his little picture. Dave, when you were talking about the lot and how right now you have to work with support, because I know I've been terrible about I was so excited, bought my Mighty Layer to do like a business to get it launched. Then started really pushing my community to come over there. A lot of them did at first, and I was consistent about every Friday, and then who made a comment, whatever. And then I stopped calling into support to request my lot to be able to distribute. And that one more thing to do at the office today kind of thing. You were talking about it. Once we get the easy button, the automated parts of it where, that layer either already has that set up or has or can can mint the tokens themselves or mint the lot, or I don't know what the right term is.
Yeah,
there.
to mint your own, if you, for example, bring your own lore, because there is a requirement to have a 1-for-1,
Okay.
lore to lot. But yeah, to have an interface where you don't have to contact a human being, to where you can, okay, here's how I do it. You deposit I need this many lots. So here's this many lore, click the button. Here's my lot from my business layer, mint my own lot, that kind of thing. That is something that honestly is holding us back. Not having that.
Actually, that's a really good point. Like the wallet interactions in general could be like, for people who need to mess with that, like could be a lot sharper. I think that's one of the big ones for, for anybody who's trying to come at it from the token angle.
Are those mighty lot that are created, are they always identified as mighty lot, even if they're taken out of the mighty layer? Or what? I mean, right now, nothing comes out of the Dragon Chain wallet, right? Or out of the Den wallet.
Right. So the way that works,
if it were to be opened up, like would they be able to like it's kind of like having an NFT of
they're NFTs,
my show or whatever.
Yeah, they are what's called an ERC 1155. It's an Ethereum standard token. Your layer specifically. So whenever you buy a layer on a business layer on Den, whenever you create one that way, a custom one, you have the option of either having it internal only or exportable to Ethereum. And yours currently, in your case, is specifically set up to where it's not exportable. That also happens to be the way that all of the LCP layers are right now. At a certain point, we had to turn that feature off for reasons that are temporary, so that we weren't just. That's a different discussion. We can talk about it offline if you want. But you have, yes, technically, you have the ability to export your tokens to Ethereum, and they're on. In fact, if you look.
They wouldn't be identified as Den tokens. They would be mighty layer token.
Yeah. Well, they would still be in the Den. Like if you look at like OpenSea, you would see. Let me just bring that up real quick. So if we go to OpenSea, and then we do, what is it? Collection, and then we do Den. Is that us? Yeah, I remembered it. Cool. So we have a page on OpenSea. It's just OpenSea.io/collection/Den, right? And so what would happen, and this is where we'll get back to once we're through some things that are happening. But when you export your layer lot out to Ethereum, they show up as a Den collection token, right? But these are all, it does show up as your layer token. So you have the AI, you have the art.
Yeah, I see.
And every month, whenever we process the LCP that we were talking about a minute ago, when those layers are created, they are created internally first, and then if you were to watch the lot contract on Ethereum, you will see every month there's a minting operation where we mint a new lot that corresponds, so that whenever you export from Den, that it's identifiable what it belongs to over on the Ethereum side of the house as well. So they all do exist on Ethereum as well. Yes.
Sounds really cool.
Yep.
Okay.
Yeah, and once we have all those features turned back on, they can go in and out at your leisure.
I'm just thinking of so many content creators that have, they've been looking for something where there's not the big middleman fee, like Patreon, or even trying to, monetize through YouTube or whatever, and you just get robbed, right and left, or it's robbing your community and they have to pay a big fee or a big, there's just so much middleman in the way. And so that would be a great alternative.
Yeah. Right now, with everything being internal, there's no fees you can tip lot to anybody, right? You can just click on their name. And like, for example, if I were to, let's just give a random person some lot real quick, just to demo. So a Caspin has posted that this biology teacher put on a suit to teach her class about biology in an interesting way. Cool. If I decided, you know what, that's a cool post, I want to tip this person. This is matter, lore, and lot can all be tipped this way. And you just click on the button here, right? So if I wanted to, I don't have any random lot, but if I was like, you know what, let's say it's I think let's say advice, right? Maybe something in this post was related to advice. I'll give them one lot for now. You can either do that anonymously, so people don't know who tipped, not even the person who you're tipping it to, or not. And then you can add a message that will only be seen between you and the person you're tipping to. Cool post. Here's some advice lot. And then I click tip. And it says, all right, this cannot be undone. You're going to tip one lot? Yup. Confirm. And now I've tipped one lot. And if I go to my transactions, to my tips, and go to sent, I can see one lot was sent to this person, and I can see my message that I sent. And this would show up if I sent matter. This would show up if I sent lore. And in the early days, before we had a DM system, I remember actually y'all weird figured out, hey, this is a way that you can DM somebody. Just send them one matter and then send a message.
That's cool. And actually, that was the same technique that he just demonstrated that I used to send you a lot for Crypto Rogan. So
dope. I haven't looked. Speaking of,
I sent Lisa that, not you yet. Would you like some?
Yeah,
I've got plenty.
I'll earn it. Whatever you want, man. I think that's a cool,
I
cool show idea.
Your contribution will be anticipated, but
cool.
But I think your word is your bond on that one. I'll send you some.
Cool. Yeah, that sounds great. What do you think? This is off topic, but what do you think your timeline on episode 0 is, bro?
Well, I've got to get basically a guest list ironed out, so that I can record the episodes, and then there will be like this isn't going to be live streamed, right? This is going to be
do it the way Joe does
episodes afterwards, right?
Yeah.
Exactly.
Same format.
Same
That's
format.
kind of the idea, right? Not that you're trying to like copy anyone's thing, but that he has a great format that you want to use.
Yep. So I'm mainlining them so that I can be initially the truest possible ripoff, and then I'm sort of started from the beginning and watching forward, and I will know what I know. I think what that sounds like and what it looks like. So you pick up little tidbits of how he runs his show, especially early on, as you go. So once I hit the point of knowledge saturation necessary, then I'll probably have a pretty good idea. I'm guessing that probably before the end of the year.
I like that approach. I've never watched the early or listened to the early podcast, but I remember him talking about that, about how it was always just something that he could do that was his own, and he could say whatever the hell, talk about whatever the hell he wanted without somebody breathing down his neck from, some network or whatever. And it's how he started out, was just he wanted some place that he could have a conversation, sort of like Den in general, right? Some place that he could have a conversation with his friends and with people that he thought were interesting enough to interview, where they could just own it themselves and be sort of loose about what they discussed without worrying about anything.
Right. Well, I mean, and my favorite part about it still is like everything you get to learn about the people. So I feel like there are going to be some deeper discussions had than people expect, probably with this, because it's going to veer wherever the conversation goes, and that may be maybe oddly personal in a way, but I think that's probably going to be something new for people.
The Lex Rogan Crypto Show.
So anyway,
cool.
All right. So that's on the agenda. I know that Joe wants to be guest number 1, so I've got him. And
definitely plenty to talk about there.
I'm assuming that that you three would also each be interested in doing an episode with me.
I'm down for sure.
I'm in.
And I'm guessing I am is as well.
I am is like, we've got a bunch of, honestly, denizens are a really cool breed of human.
Yep.
I'm always, I like people anyway. John, you and I have talked about this a little bit. Like, I just kind of, I don't know. I like just the variety of people, and they're like, where even if I disagree with someone's opinion, I'm interested in how, like, okay, where does that come from, and why do you think that? And it's just so interesting to me in general.
Yeah. Oh yeah. Well, it's gonna be open-ended. It's gonna be non-judge. It's just gonna be like, here's the person. I'm gonna ask like the best Larry King style interview questions I can, which is I think what Rogan mastered.
Cool.
And then just let the conversation go wide instead of keep it focused.
Well, we definitely are good at that.
Yeah. So, and it'll be a cool thing. Hopefully, we'll have a test recording for a preview episode that we can float around, and maybe that's something that people who are members of the lair and voting members of the lair will see at first, and then.
Yeah, ideally, you would get the kind of feedback that would be rewarded.
Yeah.
Even if it's something like the top so many replies get rewarded because that's should be the most valuable, right? If it's voted up by the community and stuff, but also direct feedback like that from people who really, it's always, I think, difficult to know who's genuinely engaged versus who's just a rando on the internet commenting, but they don't actually listen or watch, kind of thing.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
So with Den, there's a little bit better of a especially if they're lot holders, right? If they get lot by doing something, specific behaviors, maybe you say a magic word somewhere in the middle of the episode, and if they reply with that, they listened, and then you give them a lot or something, stuff,
or maybe
stuff like
I take tips for like sponsorship slots at first, or
sure.
like if you want me to boost your thing,
yeah,
right. We'll figure some cool stuff out. I think there's a lot of neat ways that that both Den and Dragon Chain and blockchain in general, and the older tech that we all love and know, called the web, can intersect for this in a cool way. So
cool. Looking forward to it. Thanks for dovetailing off onto that for a little bit.
Yeah, sure. Happy to always give an update.
Let me refresh here and see if anybody's throwing anything, because we're towards the end of the agenda. I want to see if there's any comments, replies in here. There is. Fantastic. Let's see what we've got. Is this the right one? June 1st? Yeah, good. So we have I am for I am. If time permits, which it does, should we look at moving DENDAO offshore? What would this process look like if the DENDAO voted that this would be beneficial? And Joe has responded, would be definitely a good thing in his opinion. I don't know how important or what it would cost or take to execute. I don't know. I guess that depends on how things go for the rest of this year and into the beginning of next year. I know that everybody expects crypto, blockchain, Web3, that whole technology section of technology to be hotly debated during the presidential election cycle. It's a uniquely what's the word when like everybody, it's Democrats and Republicans, like their crypto people are everybody, right? It's not one-sided. So there's going to be an interest in appealing to that base, I think.
Right. And it's broader than I think they know.
What's the word I'm thinking of? Not like cross the aisle.
You're thinking nonpartisan.
Nonpartisan, yeah. Bipartisan, nonpartisan. Yeah. It's a very like there's slightly more, it seems to be like Democratic than Republican crypto people, but it's pretty close. Like there's a lot on each side of the aisle there in the US. So I think I don't know. It depends on what the US decides it wants to allow to happen in the US. And if it makes sense to go to freaking Bermuda or something, then so be it. Then that's what we'll look at. So that's my opinion on it. What do y'all think?
It makes me very sad. Like I know this isn't a philosophical show. This is about DENDAO, but like
related though.
The quality of Den is freedom of speech. That is America.
Yeah.
Or it's supposed to be. Used to be.
Yeah, definitely should be squarely within the stated values of the USA, I think.
Well, I mean, and beyond that, right? Like the whole point of the United States ultimately and originally was this weird case where they get to try and experiment in pure Enlightenment philosophy as a form of government, right? Like it was supposed to be an ideal for humanity, and I think that's what Web3 is trying to get back to. And I think that there are unfortunately effective sort of hucksters involved in this power game, right, that have managed to politicize that to some degree. And I think that's going to shift back. But I also think that the way that's going to have to shift back is with the help of crypto and the larger community. Like, what's the quote you gave Dave earlier? The leftists and the ANCAP and the what was that quote again?
What did I say? What was I talking about?
Decentralized infrastructure.
Oh yeah, the little joke I came up with a while back. Well, it was a capitalist, a socialist, and a communist walk into a bar. They all agree on decentralized infrastructure.
Yeah,
exactly. It's definitely one of those things that appeals to, regardless of what your idea is of the best way to organize a society, it kind of works for everything you want to apply it to.
Right. It just depends on where the privacies are, though.
Unless you're a totalist or you're a statist or something, like that, then it doesn't work, right?
Yeah.
But
like right now, the government says we don't have to turn over or the FBI or whoever says we're not going to turn over these reports. We're not going to turn over this and that. Then on the other hand, the IRS, the Supreme Court just flipped and gave the IRS access through a third party to look at everybody's bank accounts. And so where the individual should have the privacy and the government should have complete transparency, it's been switched. So we could switch it back with blockchain, but we have the situation, it's like all the tools are there, but it depends on what the rules are at the game.
Right. Well, yeah, because it can also be used to do the exact opposite if it's implemented for the wrong reason.
Which is what they did with, the Constitution and breaking the rules, not of the Constitution.
And that's maybe that's basically my response is like, it depends on what the rules are and we don't know yet.
Yeah,
we still don't know.
Well, I mean, you guys did hear, not to veer too far into current events, you did hear that the SEC has again sued Elon Musk. This time for manipulating the price of Dogecoin.
What?
Whatever.
I thought they already
by sharing memes about it.
Yeah, it's so far into, if it weren't so damaging, to so many people, it would be hilarious, right?
No, Gensler is just like he's a clown, but he's a dangerous clown. Let's put it that way.
So yeah, and then just reading reports of companies in the U.S. that have to deal with this sort of even, I don't know, and we won't get too far into this because we got a couple of other replies here. But speaking of Elon, I was watching an interview or a section of interview with him, and he was saying that with Tesla, he had to settle with the SEC because he had his banking, the banks that he relied on for his company to operate, told him that if he does not settle with the SEC, that they were going to stop working with him. They were basically holding a gun to hit Tesla's head, and the banks were saying, if you don't cooperate, if you don't cooperate with the SEC, then you lose the ability to have a bank as a company. I was like, that's fucking crazy. Yeah. So I'll send that to you if I find it later.
Yeah, you should absolutely never have to do that. And that's one of the things, crypto fixes this.
So that's the kind of thing where it's like, I don't know, man. You never know what's going to come at you. So maybe I am for I am. Yeah, maybe, sure. I don't really see a reason not to, especially if it comes down to that's the only way that it can operate. Then sure.
But if that's the case, which I believe it is that it's not even the government, it's the banks that are doing this, and the banks are the central banks, which are global. So you can't run from that. So you have to build something outside of them. You can't
really divide them even. They're the same entity. The bankers are the government.
Yeah, that's what I was going to say.
Right? The FDIC foists this on American banks, but
they're a private entity. They're a private entity that tells a lot of the government what to do.
That's
right.
True.
That's why I'm not even totally clear in my head where banking ends and government begins. There's so much gray area there.
No, it's very, it's overly entangled in a way that ought to give everyone pause, especially if we consider money to be speech in this country.
So next question, let's move into this. I am for I am posed a question for Sinfully Cerebral, formerly Hyperion Frequency. Do we know when we'll hear about layer cross posting? No. Right now, we're in a little bit of a holdup, and we're still stuck on leaderboards, and that hasn't got in yet. So I can assure you that it'll be after leaderboards, but I don't know when that'll be. Right now, if you want to draw a comparison, which I rarely like to do, but if you want to draw a comparison to Reddit, if you ever used Reddit back when Reddit was like old school Reddit in the beginning, cross posting was just there was just like a manual way of doing it where you would go to a different layer in this sense, and you would post in the related layer in the title it would say cross post or X post, and then you would link to the original post. Say, hey, there's an article or there was a post in this one layer, cross posting it here for visibility because I think you'd be interested too, and then you would link to the original article. That way you weren't just copy pasting it to get points. You were actually sending people, letting them know, hey, in case you don't subscribe to this one layer, I think you guys would be interested in it, so I'm cross posting it here as well. So you would just like kind of say that, and then it worked. That's what cross posting, how it started there.
So we got to go back to the analog, like go old school. That's cool.
Yeah, a lot of stuff is like kind of just very manual, and this is what we were talking about with Lisa's
Den is vintage
earlier. Vintage, yeah. Yep. So that's how it works. I don't know how long it'll be, and I hate to keep like using this as an excuse or a crutch, but it's basically like, we'll have to see what happens, this year, kind of thing, because that determines honestly how fast we can go at some point.
Right. There's an angry bald man baby who's holding up the works.
And then finally, we have a question about looks like using tags instead of sublayers. I'm unable to attend, but want to post a discussion point. It was on the Super Happy Dragon Lucky show this week, using tags instead of sublayers. See image. So yeah, there's a really good suggestion about creating sublayers so that within a layer you can get a related layer. For example, what's illustrated here, a cryptocurrency layer with sublayers that are Bitcoin, Ethereum, Doge, others, stuff like that. Right now, what we have is all of those are just different layers. But we do have tags. Now, what we don't have is on the front end, and this is related to publishing the API so that anybody can make any version of the front end that they want. We do have tags. And so theoretically, we could make it to where you have, you use these tags to basically sort or filter content. So for example, if the cryptocurrency layer had Bitcoin, ETH, Doge tags, and you only wanted to read about Dogecoin, and that would be your sub layer, you could filter by Doge, and then only things that are tagged, and more importantly, by consensus agreed to, so that you don't get some of the spam, you would just get a really clean Dogecoin version of the cryptocurrency layer. Same thing with music. You could only have, if you only like metal, or you only like country, or you only like EDM or something, you could design your own sub layer that way using the tags. Now we don't have that feature, but technically you could do that with the way that Den exists right now. It's just that the front end doesn't have it implemented.
Yeah, and if you have the open API, then people could build it that way if they wanted to build an alt client.
That's the idea. Yeah, that's the idea, because you could do that without even before we open source with the API, and with somebody who has access to the auth system, you could have Ned.Social instead of Den.Social, and it could be anybody creates that, and you can just go log in with your existing account, and then over there maybe it's better. Maybe Den is a baseline or a reference, but maybe Ned.Social is better than Den.Social because you get, for whatever reason, somebody that just wants to build it their own way, and they do, and you get all these features in there. So I want to open that up to where people that have that ability can do that for sure.
Well, yeah, I think alt clients are going to be actually a surprisingly big game changer for Den. We'll see, but I wouldn't be surprised if it doesn't become a big thing.
Yeah, it's kind of like I know at least two of you have probably played World of Warcraft, but putting in your own UI, for example, you have the same game that you're all playing in the same world, but everybody's UI is different based on what their preferences are. The buttons are in different places and things like that.
Yeah, well, it's like it's one of the modes of the decentralization to centralization spectrum, right? It's federation. It's not decentralized directly, but it is a choice. You can choose one client or another, right? Like you can literally have a client for for people who wanted to just see all things that were not effectively voted abusive, or like whatever you wanted to do. It opens up a whole world of different ways to map the terrain, which is neat.
Sinfully Cerebral has a concept about this related to this as well. And what it reminds me of is, we don't ever talk about this, but it totally exists. There's private layers already where only if you are invited to be in that layer can you see that it exists, which is related to what you're saying sinfully, which is about having to have some lot to be able to join that layer. We do have those. We totally have those. And they're effective, especially if you, for example, one of them is going to be public at some point, but right now they're documenting everything with the governance, all under NDA. And then whenever they launch, they can show the history of development, even while private. And you can just take a switch to say, okay, this is public now. So there's a layer too.
On that note, Dave, do you think there's room for a third flavor where like it's private, but you can see it and apply to join it? That might be an interesting.
Am I glitching out right now?
Yeah. You're frozen, dude.
Oh no. You can hear me though?
Yeah.
I can hear you.
Oh, I thought it was on my end. I was over here trying to close everything down because Dave's mouth wasn't going at the same, and I didn't know what was going on.
Dave famously has really slow computers.
I have Joe's icon up there. Okay.
Awful graphics cards.
Well, as long as I have terrible graphics card. I have that terrible 3080.
Yeah.
All right. So you can hear me at least. That's good.
Yeah. So we're talking about like sub layers and stuff like that. One
Dave,
of the things.
Did you catch that question?
Go ahead, Greg.
Sorry, I threw a question out. I didn't know if you heard it or not.
No, can you restate? I was glitching out there for a minute.
A third flavor of layer somewhere between private and public, right, where you can see that it exists and apply to join it, but you have to meet some criteria to be accepted into it. That'd be an interesting thing.
So that's actually on the design table right now, because we were working on ways to have, conceptually they were called premium layers. We were just having a brainstorm basically about several in a row about how to do some interesting things, maybe monetize that kind of thing. Where you could have a layer you could see that it exists, but you have to subscribe to it and maybe pay a Matter fee or maybe just a US dollar fee or whatever,
Right. Or like your once you get the
join
wallet, the treasury extension, you have to buy
basically subscription layers kind of thing was one idea. But we could do that. Yeah, it's totally possible. And I think, I'll have to look into see like how that would be done. It could all be done on the front end technically, but that would just be kind of faking it unless you had some implementation on the back end. Right. Yeah. That kind of thing.
Someone could build a client that just showed it.
Yeah. 100%. Yeah. Yeah. But right now the private ones are private on Den's system, like not just on the front end.
So it's like encrypted unless you have a key.
It is, unless you are logged in as a profile that is already subscribed to it, then you can't see it. And the only way you can subscribe to it is if the owners of it manually subscribe you to it. You can't, in other words, you can't invite yourself to it. It's invite only.
Totally makes sense. I'm with you.
One of the things I was kind of curious about is, why do people want sub layers so much? We have a hard enough time having enough content for like a normal layer.
Because when I tried to post my 80 Mercedes in the car layer, it got booted because they wanted only fast cars, apparently.
Yeah,
well, that sounds like they're just no fun as a layer owner.
Yeah, that sounds like a butthead. Somebody literally posted today, here's a picture of the ugliest car, and it was like the Kia Cube, or I don't know what they are. But like
cereal box.
That's fine. I feel like somebody was just being a butthead.
They might have been.
I don't know.
But I thought
sounds to me
maybe
like,
if there's sub-layers, then you could have like, vintage cars or,
right. Oh yeah,
that
sounds
kind
to me
of
like
thing.
somebody had a lack of style, but
Yeah.
But yeah, that's just me.
Next time you post, let me know, and I'll go in there and I'll drop a bunch of energy on that shit.
Okay.
That's what it is. We gotta be supportive of each other. Yeah.
I gotta get her back
Hey,
to
guys,
getting her transmission fixed.
I gotta jump. So
Okay.
So I will we'll catch you all later.
See
Good
you.
meeting
All right.
though.
That was the
Cheers
last
until
question
next time.
anyway. So thank you for the discussion. I appreciate it.
All right, peace out, guys.
See you.
See you later.
Whenever I post anything cool, I instantly text Dave and go, Dave, go like my thing.
Go check this out.
I'm not joking.
That might
You
be
are
a
joking.
good.
You don't do that.
No,
Is-
I definitely do that. I 100% do that.
Oh, maybe I just ignore
What
it
if
then.
that's a thing to
You
do?
ignore it.
Can you tag your friends or ping?
They don't have
Could
tagging
you-
yet.
Could you ping people with outside of the layer, or does it ping even in the layer? I guess the notifications would come on, right? If you're in that layer, but can you tag people that are outside the layer?
Unfortunately, no. That's one of those, like I said,
No.
like quality of life things. It would be fantastic to be able to summon somebody by just, tagging them or kind of adding them, that kind of thing, to where they get a notification. Hey, someone mentioned you in this post, to where you can go look at it. But that is not a thing at the moment.
Not yet. Okay.
Nope. Yeah, there's like a whole. If I made a list of these, what I call quality of life small things, it could be a whole like update in itself with all of these things.
And this is the benefit of going open source, and that way allowing all these great minds to go do the work and bring it in and make this place better, kind of thing.
Yeah, the idea there is that, if somebody was like, why can't you do this? I know it's not so hard. I could do it myself if I could just get access to it. Well, then you could give access to it, and they can look and see how things are set up, and they could suggest, basically say, hey, you know what? If you change this bit, or if you include this bit of code here, it'll work. And then they submit that. We look at it to make sure it's not malicious, and we vote on it and say, yep, let's pull that code in. That way we get people. There's billions of people in the world, and more of them every day know how to code stuff. So hopefully you start attracting people that this is a way of life too for a lot of people, like coding as a hobby, coding as a tinkering as a hobby with stuff, building stuff. So even hobbyists that want to like tinker and build would bring such value for those reasons. Hey, that's stupid that this doesn't work this way. I need to be able to right click and open a new tab. Here's some code that does that, kind of thing.
Yeah. Cool.
There's a session. I don't know. It said, John, join our session. I don't know what that means, but sure, sounds good.
Oh, session. So there's a messaging app called Session that I use, and I just roped him into it, and I want to at some point I want to organize some like decentralization, not classes, but just kind of like hangouts, talk about how to do things in a way that maybe is a pain in the ass right now, just because it's new, but is completely off of the existing rails. For example, Session is a private messenger that does not require a phone number. Like Signal is also encrypted and private. You gotta have a phone number, and it's tied to some central server like in the UK or something. But Session is one of these where it's like, nope, you don't need a phone number. It's all on a decentralized network that is secured by a blockchain and all that stuff.
Very cool.
Over time, you get solutions that are based on that kind of stuff that replace the legacy solutions.
I love it. That's awesome.
Cool. So that is our agenda. John, you've got a screen share. Do you want to throw something up?
Oh, we don't have to. I made Greg's Assange video.
Oh yeah.
The little thing, and they're like 10 seconds or something.
I want to see what it looks like. Let's get some fun in here before we leave.
You can see what the people think. There's 2 different versions, so let me know which version you like better.
And we can vote on it.
Yeah, let's bring it up.
Lots of girls.
WikiLeaks.com.
Just an ad for WikiLeaks. I love it.
Lots of chicks.
I didn't mean for that to happen. I just typed in happy and then just scrolled and took over the videos of whoever was at a computer. I can mess with that. I'll mess with who's there.
That fits because men maybe are just less happy when they're at their computer. I don't know.
I think that's what it is.
These angry people on the internet, they're all dudes.
Yeah, I'm blaming the B-roll that I have. Then there's the other one.
All right, let's see what the other one is.
It's very similar. Wait, that one's exactly the same.
Same thing?
WikiLeaks.
Oh, no.
The truth is
Different
out
ending.
there.
Different ending. The truth is out there. I love it.
I
love
wasn't
that
sure
spiral,
what
too.
Greg would want for like I feel like I shouldn't be like WikiLeaks. It's legal. Go look shit up. Like I felt like that might be a little too on the nose. And then I couldn't tell if Joe was joking with, oh, it's actually not legal yet. Like, all right, I don't know what's true or not.
It depends on who you are. Honestly, it depends on who you are. I remember for me, it was a security clearance thing where they were like, nope, you don't have the need to know. You're not allowed to look at it. You have to sign this document saying that you won't, so that if you ever get caught looking at it, we can fire you. So it's weird. so I love it. Ads for WikiLeaks.
If you've got a better tagline than the truth is out there, let me know.
WikiLeaks, be nosy.
Be nosy?
Or something like that. Yeah.
I don't know.
So reminders. Let's go to reminders and we'll get out of here for the day. All right. So submit questions. Next week on World Blockchain, we're talking about artificial intelligence. That'll be cool. I think I am the one that proposed that, if not mistaken. So that's cool that that's in there. Also, Super Happy Dragon Lucky happens on Tuesdays, and there's an AMA session every single week. So you can ask Joe, who is the founder and architect of Dragon Chain. And that show has updates on Den and Dragon Chain, and it's every week. So go ask questions on that. And then Coffee with Den has a proposal up right now. If you go to governance, if you have any lot for Coffee with Den, there is a governance proposal that I thought that I published already.
Yeah, you did.
Here it is. Yeah. So we're changing the time. It's going to be in the evening. So I've got 4 options. Go vote for which one you want, either Tuesday or Wednesday, either 7 p.m. or 8 p.m. Eastern time. And it looks like we have 2 voters already. Y'all weird and I am. So Sinfully Cerebral, I know you have a bit of lot as well. Vote for that. And then hopefully we can get some more people in on the live shows too, because a lot of folks are at work. It's Wednesday morning. People are going to work. They're at work. So we can do it at a more accessible time. So since that was on the reminders list, I wanted to just plug my own show that's on Wednesday mornings at 9 a.m. right now. All of those have rewards associated with participation. So go do the things and you'll get the stuff. All right. There's links to the layers where they're hosted. And this has been the DENDAO call for June 1st. Thank you again, everybody, for joining in chat too, and for the questions there. All right. Anybody, any last things? John and Lisa, that you want to throw out before we sign off?
No, this is great. Really informative. I love learning more about Den. It encourages me to, stick with it and try to bring more people into the community, in my community, over to the platform.
Well, thank you. And, that's what this is here for. So if you have any questions, even if they're technical or, usability or, hey, this keeps not working, what's going on? That's why this is open to everybody. So thank you for taking the time to join.
I'd like to plug the right click.
Yes, you would.
I'd like to be able to right click on most links and be able to open them in a new tab or something like that, especially with like the graphics. Oh, it's so hard. I got to do like a snip. I got to like snip the screen to get a graphic of like the layer or whatever. Like, no, let's make it so that the items are easily accessible. That's what I want. That's my campaign. That's the sole reason why I come on this show, is for the right click. So
all right.
Bring it back, maybe.
Thanks for that. All right. We'll see everybody next week. Have a good weekend. All right. Cheers.
Because that goal will serve to organize and measure the best
Adaptable, all capital, label radical yet rational. A tactical approach is palpable if this animal is fallible, but that conclusion is laughable. So with for all detachable from the mandible, you see it now.